Oh man, you guys. If you thought it was worse, well, it got worser. From the New York Post, migrants will never leave New York City's care. Critics fear as lefty poll renew push for unlimited shelter stay. Unlimited. So I asked Copilot to break this down for me so I could understand it better because I'm not that smart. And it said, sure, I can break it down for you. Get this, you guys. Get this. The issue at hand is about the length of time migrants can stay in public shelters in New York City. Mayor Eric Adams, who is a Democrat, had imposed a cap on how long migrants can stay in those shelters. For single adults, the limit was set to 30 days. Because even Eric Adams knows, who's a Democrat, knows that this is unsustainable. The city cannot afford to pay for their shelter indefinitely. Literally, like the city is paying their rent. And this is not sustainable. It's going to bankrupt the city. Then it goes on to say, however, some members of the New York City Council, who are considered to be on the far left politically, are trying to pass legislation to remove the cap. So they want no limits. This means migrants could potentially stay in public shelters indefinitely. Well, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? The pushback and criticism come from those who fear that this could lead to migrants permanently relying on the city's care. They argue that the shelters might become overcrowded and resources could become strained. Look, rent in New York is very, very expensive. You know, for a one-bedroom apartment, it's going to cost you like $2,500. That's in like the outer boroughs. It's very expensive. Ask anybody that lives in New York City and earns an income in New York City. It's very, very expensive to rent an apartment. I mean, it's very expensive. And forget about buying a home. It's very expensive. You're literally outside of the budget. Literally, if you're, like, if the minimum wage in New York City is like 15 to 18 bucks, I don't know how much it is, but let's say it's 18 bucks an hour minimum wage. How could a person making minimum wage afford to pay their own rent in New York? You would have to, at that point, bring in a roommate and split everything down the middle. You cannot live on your own by yourself in New York City, in my opinion, on a minimum wage salary and pay your own rent. You would need to bring in a roommate. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. But again, with the migrants, how is the city going to pay for it if they're going to keep them in the shelter system? How are you going to pay for it, city council people? Give us some suggestions. What are you going to do? You're going to raise the property value of every New Yorker? I continue. This is a complex issue with valid concerns on both sides. It's a balance between providing care for those in need and ensuring the sustainability of public resources. Hope this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions. But here's the thing. New York City has always had a homeless problem. Always. Since the inception of New York City, there has always been a homeless problem. People living on the streets, they're living in the subways, they're living in and out of the shelter system. By the way, incidentally, in the New York City shelter system, it works like this. First come, first serve, right? So what happens is essentially is you first come, first serve, you wait in line, you get your bed, you go to sleep at night, and in the daytime, you gotta leave the shelter and come back, right? That's how the shelter system had always worked in New York City. It's like a revolving door. You come into the shelter, you go to sleep, you get your bed, and then when the lights come on, the sunshine rises, the sun rises, you gotta leave the shelter. And then you come back for your bedtime. That's how it works. But in this case with the migrants, they're getting like special preferential treatment here. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem. It's not fair to the regular American citizen homeless folk living in New York City. Now, if I was a homeless person in New York City, let's say I decided to go back to New York City and say, listen, you guys, I'm homeless. It's a right to shelter city, right to shelter state. I want shelter. What are they going to tell me as an American citizen? Sorry, Mr. Fats. Sorry, aka Tacos. We don't have room for you at the inn because it's being occupied by the 170,000 migrants. Come back later. You know, the whole thing is being destroyed. The whole premise, the whole purpose of sanctuary and the right to shelter, that was all designed for the American citizen. Not for like outsiders. And the whole thing's been like totally discombobulated at this point. I guarantee you, if you decide to travel to New York City just for kicks, and you declare that this is a right to shelter state and you need a place to live, they're gonna tell you, sorry bud, we don't have any room. It's unbelievable, my friends. So I asked another question. How does a city council propose to pay for all of this special treatment? Essentially what I am saying is that the shelter system of New York City was never intended to be used for migrants and refugees and asylum seekers. It was always reserved for New Yorkers in desperation, not for this. So I asked the question. The New York City Council and other city officials have proposed several measures to fund the accommodations for migrants in public shelters. Get this now. This is where it gets really bad. Policy reforms. The New York City Council has released a report proposing policy reforms to improve support services for migrants. Those reforms aim to improve city shelter housing, mental health services, language access, temporary humanitarian shelters, immigration legal services, rental assistance, workforce development, healthcare, education, and more. Essentially, they're throwing everything. They're throwing everything they can at the migrants in order to help them. They're throwing the whole kitchen sink. Unbelievable. But again, how are you going to pay for it? You're going to give them a lawyer to state their case, their asylum case? You're going to give them it's unbelievable what the city is doing for the migrants. This, in my opinion, this kind of treatment where the city is rolling out the red carpet for these people, if you were a regular New Yorker, you would not get this kind of treatment. No way. I've known people in New York City who've been homeless. I know for a fact, no way, in my opinion, you're going to get the red carpet rolled out for you. But they're bending over backwards for the migrants. Why them? Budget allocation. Get this now. Governor Kathy Hochul unveiled a $223 billion budget that includes $2.4 billion to cover the cost of sheltering migrants and provide funds for case management, medical and legal bills, and and employment-related services. So they're spending all this money to get them a job, to help them find a job, legal, they're paying for their lawyers, their medical. They're literally throwing everything at these people to make them feel comfortable. But you're not going to get that as a New Yorker. The city is projected to receive $104.6 million from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. That's it. For asylum seekers, which constitutes around 30% of the money announced and is much larger than payment to other cities. Wow. All this for them. And they're not even citizens at this point. Cost reduction. The mayor's administration is planning on reducing migrant-related costs by 20%, including cutting down the length of shelter stay and finding ways to stop opening new sites. Well, guess what? The mayor can say whatever he wants. The city council has leverage over him. If they vote against the mayor, they're going to vote against the mayor. The mayor is basically deballed at this point. You can't fight the city council. That's how New York City politics works. Those proposals aim to balance the need for providing care to migrants and ensuring the sustainability of public resources. However, they are subject to approval and may face opposition from various quarters. Please note this is a complex issue with ongoing development. Let me know if you have any other questions. But again, it didn't really answer my question how they propose to pay for all of this. Obviously, the city would plan on raising taxes, raising property taxes. You know, that's where it's going to come from. It's going to come from the New Yorker who lives in New York, pays his bills in New York, earns an income. They're going to tax the shit out of every New Yorker in order to pay for the migrants. So if your property value starts to discombobulate, but your property taxes go up, you're going to raise your water fee, right? Everything is going to go up. How much you pay for water is going to go up. How much you pay for gas is going to go up. How much you pay for heating is going to go up. How much you pay for your property taxes, it's going to go up. Everything is going to go up. Unbelievable, my friends. Unbelievable. The city is bending over backwards, rolling out the red carpet for these migrants who are not even citizens. They're not even American citizens. And they're getting all of these goodies. Their housing, mental health, doctors, immigration and naturalization services. They're going to hire lawyers for these guys. They're going to try to hook them up with a job. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And as a side note, it's unbelievable. And folks, this is coming to a city near you. This is coming to a town near you. This is coming to a community near you. Don't just think it's going to end with the blue cities, those sanctuary cities. They're coming to your town next at some point. And the crazy part about this whole entire migrant fiasco is that when your ancestors came here, most likely through Ellis Island, most likely, they didn't get this kind of special treatment at all. Like when the early settlers came to New York City during the previous turn of the century, they lived in the shtetl. They did not get this kind of treatment at all. You were literally, when you came to New York, you were literally on your own. The city said, we welcome you to America. You are now going to become a naturalized citizen. Blah, 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 blah. You are on your own. There were no social safety nets. There were no social benefits at all. At all. You got nothing. The only thing you got was granted naturalization. You became an American citizen, and that was it. You were on your own. And those guys, and those people, your ancestors who came to Ellis Island, they generally came through the legal channel, the proper legal channels. They didn't jump ahead of everybody else. And when they got to America, they got bumpkins. They got nothing. No benefits, no social programs, no welfare, no hotels, no shelters, no nothing. You were on your own. But in this case, the migrants are getting everything. Special treatment, special appropriations, everything. The city is just throwing everything at them. We love you, migrants. We love you, asylum seekers. We love you. We love you. We love you. And I'm thinking to myself at the end of the day, does Eric Adams loves the illegals, loves the migrants more than me? and I'm a citizen?